Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the SimNFL show, real talk about fake sports. I am your host and commissioner. You can call me Pierce. Today we are covering all of the Week 17 action of the 25 season of the Pro Sim over at SimSN. If you're unfamiliar, come check us out on the website and on Discord. We would love to have you. So as I mentioned, we're covering Week 17, the penultimate week of the regular season. So we'll go over the stats and summaries of every game, culminating in my choices for the players of the week. Do a quick injury update, see who's getting healthy for the playoffs, and then look at the NFL standings by conference. Then we will go into the final clinching scenarios. So with just one game apiece, we'll see who needs to win or lose for which teams to get in and how that all plays out. And then we'll look at the other end of the spectrum. We'll look at the current draft order for the top 12 teams heading into the last week of the season. And then we're bringing back our feature segment now that extensions are active, and we're going to look at some early extension offers, both those that were accepted and those that were declined. Some really big names have already inked deals, and though we don't have the full details at this time, we can at least look at value, which again is an overall estimation of the worth of a contract regardless of length. So information like guaranteed percentages and AAV will still be coming out, but at least we can talk value of some big names. And then we will preview Week 18, the final week of the season. Sneak peek, Week 18, all games are on Sundays, and the only primetime game is Sunday night. So there's no Thursday, no Monday. It's all on the same day for maximum playoff impact, morning, afternoon, and then a single Sunday night game. But we will get to that at the end. For now, let's dive into the Week 17 summaries. On Thursday night, there was a close game between the Vikings and the Falcons, with the Falcons coming out ahead. Atlanta actually scored on their very first drive of the game, going 75 yards in 9 plays. Michael Fulmer hitting the spotlight with a 21-yard gain and then a 2-yard touchdown for the first score. Later in the first, Jose Padilla was intercepted by rookie RTM for the Vikings. He returned it to the Falcons' 33-yard line. Vikings drove all the way to the 6. But then Sinnock threw an interception to Carl Rosania, so no points for the Vikings there. In the second quarter, Fulmer broke off some big runs again. A 15-yard gain, a 52-yard gain, and then a 2-yard touchdown, giving the Falcons at that point a 14-3 lead with his second score. The Vikings responded, though, in 12 plays. Sinnock finding wide receiver Joseph Jones for 20 and 15-yard gains, ultimately leading to a Zach Gratterall 1-yard touchdown run, closing the gap to 14-10. It was 14-13 in the fourth quarter when there was a wild sequence. Vikings driving, trying to take the lead. Sinnock threw to Adrian Daniels, who got almost to the goal line, reached out the ball, and was actually stripped of it. And receiver and defender both jumped up to argue the call, leaving the ball at the 1-yard line where a pileup ensued. And incredibly, Vikings center Dustin Woodson-Luster was at the ball at the bottom of the pile, saved the Vikings the possession. James Ibach would run it in from a yard out, and then Sinnock would pass for a 2-point conversion to give the Vikings the 21-14 lead. But Atlanta would respond right back. Padilla would find Richie Igwebuike for a 51-yard catch. Then Fulmer would score his third touchdown of the game on a 5-yard catch. Extra point tied it up at 21. Then just a couple plays from scrimmage later, Sinnock threw his second interception of the game. This one to Adrian Gerner. That was returned all the way to the Vikings' 14-yard line. Fulmer ran it for 11, and then Padilla ran it in himself for a 3-yard touchdown. Made it 28-21 with about 3.5 minutes to go. Minnesota did a lot with their last possession. They drove down the field. They got to the Atlanta 24-yard line. But on 4th and 5, with 9 seconds left, Sinnock threw to the end zone and was intercepted by none other than Rafael Rosario, the receiver. The tall man playing defense on the Hail Mary picked it off and clinched the game for the Falcons. So a wild game with a couple of wild plays, including the fact that Rosario, an incredible receiver, only had 2 catches for 15 yards. So by far his biggest reception of the day was actually an interception of Sinnock in the end zone to preserve the Falcons' win. Falcons, as we will talk about in a little bit, have forced a division championship game with the Panthers next week. The Dolphins and the Packers met in a rare cross-conference late-season duel. Two heavyweights duking it out. Full starters playing, both teams really playing for seeding and best record. Dolphins overcame Dean Hammond's 5 interceptions on the day to sneak out a 29-27 victory. Hammond's first interception came in the first quarter, ending a drive that had gone all the way to the Packer 26-yard line. Brian Quifo had his first interception there. Then in the second quarter, we had our first touchdown. Gregory Sellers running for a 26-yard gain, setting up Hammonds to Lawrence Sanders for a 9-yard touchdown. That made it 10-0 Vikings with the early lead. On the next drive, Garibay threw an interception to William Alexander, and Hammonds quickly found Kenny White for a 37-yard touchdown. Just like that, lead was 17-0. Still in second after a Packers field goal, Hammonds threw his second interception of the game to Quifo, and that gave the Packers the ball on the Dolphin 38-yard line. They drove down to the 5, but on 3rd and 1 at the 5-yard line, Garibay threw another interception again to William Alexander. So gave Miami back the ball. Hammonds immediately threw his 3rd interception of the day to the same cornerback, and he actually took it all the way for a pick 6. So 3rd interception for Quifo and his first touchdown there made it 17-10. Dolphins still with the lead. And they took that lead into halftime. First play of the second half, Hammonds threw his 4th interception of the game. This one to Manish Watson, who took it all the way to the Dolphins' 8-yard line. Packers fullback Clement Carr took it from there. 1 carry, touchdown, tie game. Miami would respond with a drive for a short field goal, retaking the lead. But then with it 2017, Green Bay would finally get ahead on a 10-play, 64-yard drive. Garibay finding receiver Nwachukwu for 10 yards, then again for 12, and again for 15. Ultimately, Ramik Phelps with a 1-yard touchdown catch to give the Packers the 24-20 advantage at that point. But Miami came right back. Hammonds found tight end Jamie Ramirez for 56 yards. That got them a field goal, drawing them within a point. Going to the fourth quarter now, Dolphins get the ball back. Hammonds finds Sanders, 52-yard gain there. And then a touchdown to tight end Keaton Chang for 2 yards. They go for 2, they don't get it. That makes it 29-24, Dolphins back on top. And then Dolphins got a stop, got the ball back, but while driving to the Packer 39-yard line, Hammonds threw his 5th interception of the game, this one to Larry Bouchon. And Green Bay would drive and get a field goal, cutting the deficit to 2. And then later, Packers would get the ball back, looking to go take the lead. They drive all the way to the Dolphins' 13-yard line, but the drive would end on a 9-yard sack, and then Tompkins would miss the 39-yard go-ahead field goal with about 3 minutes to go. Dolphins got the ball back, ran it 7 times, getting 2 first downs, which was enough to run out the clock. So again, despite the turnovers, Dolphins squeaking out the victory. 29-27 is the final score in that one. Hammonds and Garibay combined for a lot of yards, 4 touchdowns, but also 7 interceptions between them. Big day for Quifo with the 3 interceptions and the pick 6. William Alexander, a couple of interceptions for the Dolphins as well. The Jaguars were upset by the Patriots while they tried to keep their playoff hopes alive in an 18-15 final score. Jacksonville scored on their very first possession, Matt Howard finding Ronnie Ritter for a 24-yard gain, then Jake Bolden for another 24, that ultimately would lead to a Benjamin Ray field goal, the first of 5 on the day for him. They would add a second one on the first play of the second quarter for a 6-0 lead. But then the Patriots would come back, Lions finding Cunningham for a 20-yard gain, and then Noe Morales for a 47-yard gain, leading to a Rashard Ward touchdown run, extra point giving the Patriots their first lead. Patriots were down 12-7 in the third quarter when Lions went on the warpath again. Morales for 20, Logan Njoku for a 20-yard gain. It led to a Ben Frere field goal from 29 yards out. Jacksonville is still leading 12-10 at this point. They tacked on another field goal in the fourth quarter to make it 15-10. But then Lions put together one more great drive, hitting Cunningham for 20, and then the big play to Noe Morales for a 28-yard touchdown. Rashard Ward would carry for the 2-point conversion to make it a 3-point gain at 18-15. Jaguars drove to the Patriots 42 on their next drive, but on 4th and 2 with about 5 minutes to go and change, they decided to punt. They'd get the ball back with a minute 12 left, and they would this time would only get to their own 45-yard line before Matt Howard threw an interception to Irvin Guzman with just seconds to go, and the Patriots would hold on for the upset win. Jacksonville in total would have 8 drives on the day get into Patriots territory, but they would end with 5 field goals, 2 punts, and 1 end of the first half. So it was not enough to overcome the Patriots. Noe Morales, only 4 catches, but 112 yards and a touchdown. Wayne Ricketts, fantastic day. Even with Peterson back, he had 41 touches for 227 yards. And Benjamin Ray with the 5 field goals, but it wasn't quite enough in this one. Jaguars are still alive for the playoffs. We'll talk about that a little more in just a bit. Carolina held off a late rally from the Detroit Lions and held on to win 31-29. The Panthers defense picked off Randall Hansen on the 3rd play of the game, but let's see. Link was sacked on 3rd down, pushed Carolina all the way back to the Detroit 36-yard line, and they decided to pass up the long field goal, and they punted. So no points despite the early turnover. After the punt, Detroit got called for holding, so they started at their own 8-yard line and went 3 and out, and the resulting punt gave Carolina great field position, starting actually on the Lions' 49-yard line. Link would go 6 of 7 passing on that next drive, would find Fernando Owens 4 times, including a 3-yard touchdown, to put the Panthers on the board. Detroit responded with a 14-play drive, going 77 yards and doing it the hard way, ended with Bianchi carrying for a 2-yard touchdown run to tie the score at 7. Still 7s in the second half. Link opens up after halftime, going 4 for 4 for 70 yards, finding Don Scott twice, first for 19 and then for a 26-yard touchdown. Made it 14-7, Panthers back on top. But Detroit would respond to tie. Big play was a 3rd and 9 run by Tanner Lake, fooling the defense and running for 36-yard line, for a 36-yard gain, excuse me. That drive ended with Hansen finding his tight end Frank Moore for a 24-yard touchdown pass to tie the game. But Link would come back and get the score right back, finding Owens for 36 and then a 29-yard touchdown to retake the lead. Detroit on their next drive would get to the Carolina 45, and on 4th and 3 would decide to go for it, would convert and get them in range for a field goal. Then a Link interception to Juan Goldberg gave Detroit the ball at the Panthers' 17-yard line. But Stephen Kapfhammer came through with a big sack to keep the Lions out of the end zone. They would get a field goal, making it 21-20, still Panthers' advantage. Panthers then drove to midfield. Link threw another interception, this one to Robert Smith. Lions would drive to the Carolina 16-yard line, but then Hansen would throw his second interception, the second one to Samuel Frazier, so no points there. We go to the 4th quarter, Lions still trailing. Hansen breaks through on a 40-yard scramble, but Kapfhammer catches up to him and recovers a fumble. So Lions still behind in this one. Panthers would add a field goal, making it 24-20, and then Detroit would drive to the Panther 19-yard line with about 4 minutes to go, but they would get stopped short of the goal line again, kick a field goal, again making it a one-point game. Carolina got the ball back and, far from running out the clock, drove down the field, Lake hitting Kelvin Dupree for 29, Russell Barnes for 12, and then Dupree carried for an 18-yard touchdown. So with under 2 to go, that gave the Panthers an 8-point lead after the extra point. But Detroit wasn't done. They ran a brilliant RPO play where Tanner Lake again fooled everyone, took it for 58 yards. And then they hand off to Bianchi, who ran it for a 17-yard touchdown. But they went with Bianchi again on the 2-point conversion. Kapfhammer was there with the critical tackle to keep them out of the end zone. Lions don't get the 2-point conversion. Panthers hold on and win. So, big day for Link, 428 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. 2 of those scores to Fernando Owens, who had 9 catches for 142 yards. Big day for Stephen Kapfhammer, 5 tackles for loss, a sack, a fumble recovery, including the big final stop on that last 2-point conversion. And then 2 interceptions for Samuel Frazier as well. Not to be outdone for the Lions, Victor Villamar and Frank Moore, both with over 100 yards receiving. Stephen Brouillet with 3 sacks. So lots of big statistical performances in a very close game. But Panthers needing the win, and they do get it. They knock the Lions out of the playoff race. They keep themselves on pace for a division title. But again, we'll talk more about both of those scenarios in just a bit. In the duel for the number 1 pick, the 49ers lost the game and all but secured the pick, falling to the Saints 20-14. Landrum once again started out hot, found Gregory Sprouse on his first play from offense with a 46-yard gain that led to a Saints field goal. On the second drive, Landrum found Sprouse again, this one a 41-yard touchdown. So just like that, Saints took a quick 10-point lead. But later, Landrum would throw a pair of interceptions to free safety John Gordon. The first, the defense would take over and force a 3-and-out. But the second one, Gordon took himself all the way to the house. Second interception and a pick 6, bringing San Francisco within 10-7. Late in the second quarter, the 49er offense would get on board, Solano finding Fernando Thomas with a 34-yard pass. And then Solano would carry himself for 42 yards and a touchdown. A big play there to take the lead. We go to the second half now. In the third quarter, Landrum finds who else? Gregory Sprouse, 51-yard gain, leading to an Anthony Cook 1-yard touchdown reception, putting the Saints back on top. In the fourth quarter, down 3, San Francisco drove to the Saints' 16-yard line. But they had 2 negative runs in succession, pushing them back, and then they missed a 40-yard field goal that would have tied it. Saints added to their lead, made it 20-14. In the final minute, San Francisco drove again into Saints territory. This time they got to the 39-yard line, but on 4th and 7, the Saints made a gutsy call. They ran a safety blitz, and Devontae Todd got to the quarterback for the sack to end the game. Saints coming out on top. Landrum, 221 yards and 2 touchdowns, 146 of those yards to Gregory Sprouse, and a touchdown on just 5 receptions. Brett McPhail, phenomenal game, 8 tackles behind the line of scrimmage for him, including a couple sacks. William May had a couple of sacks for the 49ers, and John Gordon with that brilliant performance, 2 picks and a touchdown. But ultimately, San Francisco loses to the Saints again. They are 1-15, and again, most likely will be picking first come draft day. The Titans and Bills had a close game, a worthy contest between 2 AFC playoff hopefuls. 31-23 was the final there. Tennessee scored first, Reimer finding Jamie Murray for a 34-yard gain, and then Reimer taking it himself from 14 yards out for the touchdown and the early lead. But later, Buffalo would tie it on a very brief 2-play drive. Those two plays being Asensio throwing for 32 yards to rookie running back Mickey Brogdon, and then a 47-yard touchdown to tight end Jan Summers to tie it up. In the second quarter, another great run from Wayne Reimer, a 32-yard gain would lead to a Joseph Kale touchdown run, his first of 2 on the day. Later in the second, Tennessee was pinned at their own 8-yard line after a great Buffalo punt, and Reimer was sacked by defensive tackle Brian Ford, in the end zone, giving the Bills a safety and cutting the Titans' lead to 14-9. But in the second half, the Titans would add to that. Reimer, another big pass play to Jamie Murray. This one a 49-yard touchdown, making it 21-9. Later, Reimer would throw an interception to Alvin Anan that he would return to the Titans' 25-yard line, putting Asensio in great position to find Brian Adams down the sideline for a 25-yard touchdown, and cutting the lead to 5 points. Still in the third quarter, Tennessee would respond, driving to the Buffalo 13-yard line, but Alvin Anan again coming up with a big play, stripping wide receiver Durham Simmons after a reception and getting the recovery. So Anan get the forced fumble and the recovery, taking the ball away from the Titans in the red zone. Tennessee would get a stop and a good punt return, and they would only need 2 plays, though, to score again. Another great Wayne Reimer run for 38, and Joseph Kale's second rushing touchdown from 9 yards out. That made it 28-16 at that point. But the Bills weren't done. In the fourth quarter, Tennessee once again came into Buffalo territory, and the Bills once again bailed them out. The Bills actually caused fumbles on consecutive plays. The first one was forced by Matt McCants, the defensive end, but the Titans fell on it. And then the very next play, McCants actually recovered a fumble, this one forced by linebacker Andrew Basque. So that gave Buffalo a chance to drive, and drive they did. They went 75 yards in 12 plays, Asensio finding Brian Adams for a 30-yard gain, and all of that leading to a Mickey Brogdon 1-yard touchdown carry. So that made it 31-23, but there were only seconds left on the clock at that point, and the Titans were able to hold on and win. So a big day for Reimer, 238 yards passing, 134 yards rushing, and a touchdown each, and 2 rushing touchdowns for Joseph Kale. Alvin Anan and Brian Ford certainly doing their best for the Bills' defense. And Asensio, a rare mistake-free day, 250 yards and a couple of touchdowns. But the Titans do come out ahead in this one, and they keep their playoff hopes alive. The Chargers and Bengals had a very close game, with the Chargers just coming out on top by a final score of 35-30. Cincinnati would score on their first drive with David Taylor taking the reins early and often. He had an 18-yard rushing gain, a 21-yard gain, and then a 3-yard touchdown run. Chargers would return the ensuing kickoff to the Bengal 44-yard line. Then they would get a defensive pass interference call to give him an extra 15 yards, and then a face mask call giving him a half distance to the goal, so another 8. Ultimately, James Carter ran it in from 2 yards out to tie the game. But Cincinnati would respond, David Taylor breaking another big run for 23, and then the Chargers would get called for their own face mask call, so a free 15, and David Taylor would run it in from 14 yards out, his second rushing touchdown of the game. Bengals got a defensive stop, and then Barry Madruga returned the punt, another 46 yards, putting them in great position for David Taylor to get his third touchdown run of the game, this one from 3 yards out. So very quickly, it was 21-7 with the Bengals leading. The Chargers would respond, though, in 11 plays, going 75 yards, finishing it off with Aguilera finding Charles Thomas for a 27-yard touchdown, 21-14. Bengals still leading, but the Chargers would catch up in the second half, going 72 yards on their first touch, with Pedro Tavecchio finishing that drive with a 9-yard touchdown run to tie it up at 21. After a failed Bengals fourth down attempt, Chargers would get the ball back, would drive to the Bengal 30-yard line. but Aguilera would throw his only interception of the game to Dilip Tran. Cincinnati would take that position and convert it into a field goal, retaking the lead 24-21. Go into the fourth quarter now. James Carter runs it for 20 yards on a Charger drive, getting Aguilera in position for Aguilera to run it in from 27 yards out, taking the lead for the Chargers. Back and forth we go. Bengals drive to the Charger 20-yard line, but they take a big sack, and then trying to convert on a long third down, an interception to Alan Laurent ends that drive. Chargers still on top. Aguilera responds, finding Sebastian Moore, his tight end, for a 24-yard gain, and ultimately Aguilera's second rushing touchdown of the game, this one on a 5-yard scramble, making it 35-24 with about 6.5 minutes to28 At this point, the Chargers have outscored the Bengals 28-3 is the run that they're on. They've scored 28 of the last 31 points. But the Bengals aren't done. After a trade of punts, Taylor has another great run, 44 yards, and ultimately it is Jefferson who gets the fourth rushing touchdown for the Bengals. But they fail their 2-point conversion. That makes it 35-30. Chargers get the ball back. They get a defensive holding call to give them a first down, and then James Carter runs it for 23 to get another first down, which is enough to hold on to the ball, run up the clock, and clinch the game. So Chargers, with that big second effort, come back and win. Aguilera, 114 yards and a passing touchdown, 102 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. James Carter adding a rushing touchdown as well. Magnificent day for David Taylor of the Bengals, 29 carries, 241 yards, including 3 first-half touchdowns. But it's not enough for the team effort of the Chargers, who come back and win, keeping their playoff hopes alive as well. Whew! So, with the rest of the Week 17 scoreboard, we see that in another pivotal AFC pre-playoff matchup, Pittsburgh outlasted Las Vegas 41-26 for extending the Steelers' winning streak. Fullback Danny Kipnis had 160 yards on 13 rushes, a couple touchdowns. He also had a 25-yard reception. It's a big day for him, leading Pittsburgh to, I want to say, their 5th straight victory, getting hot just in time for the playoffs. Indianapolis shut out the Jets 14-0. Gary Freitag had 29 carries for 138 rushing yards, only 65 passing yards, a couple of passing touchdowns, 3 interceptions, but it was enough to get past the Jets. The Colts defense held Andrew Michael to three completions on 22 attempts, and when you factor in the lost sack yardage, the Jets had 13 net passing yards for the entire game. Denver defeated Tampa Bay 31-7. Hugh Kahn, another great rushing day, 32 carries, 163 yards, and 2 touchdowns for him. The Rams' offense was running on all cylinders. They beat the Texans 43-17. Philip Avila, 42 completions on 53 attempts for not less than 495 passing yards and 4 touchdowns. Fantastic day for him. Also a fantastic day for the Cleveland Browns, offense and defense, as they blanked the Chiefs 42-0 to clinch the North Division. Juan Mora had 198 yards and 2 touchdowns on 30 carries for the Browns. Dallas defeated Arizona 30-7, with Vladimir Dawson getting 136 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns on 21 carries. Philadelphia beat Seattle for a crucial victory in the NFC wildcard race. The Dolphins' defensive secondary accounted for 3 touchdowns. Free safety Leonard Vaughn returning 2 kicks for scores of 98 and 90 yards. And then cornerback Nate Simeon on a 25-yard pick 6 near the end of the game. So Eagles doing an offense with defense and special teams to beat the Seahawks. Washington beat the Baltimore Ravens on Sunday night. 43-24 was the final. Stephen Tabbert, 27 carries, 167 rushing yards, and 3 touchdowns. And then on Monday night, Chicago beat the Giants 34-14. Gerald Lewis completed 40 of 59 passes with 529 passing yards and 4 touchdowns for the pocket passer, leading the Bears to the primetime win. So, with all of that said, here are my choices for the players of the week. Got to call out Avila again for 495 yards and 4 touchdowns with no picks. David Taylor and Stephen Tabbert with a trio of touchdowns each and 200-plus yards from scrimmage for both of them. Fernando Owens, 142 yards and a couple touchdowns for the Panthers. And then Nick Evans, 194 receiving yards for the Bears tight end and a score for him. On the defensive side, Bruyere for the Lions with 3 sacks. Brett McPhail of the Saints with 8 tackles for loss, including a couple sacks. Brian Cuifo for the Packers with 3 picks, including a touchdown. And John Gordon of the 49ers, 2 picks for him and a touchdown. And then Leonard Vaughn with a fantastic special teams day, 188 yards and 2 touchdowns on just 2 returns. Fantastic day for him for the Eagles. So, congratulations to all 10 of these players on being named my choices for Player of the Week. With a quick injury report, we can see it's a short list. Teams, most of them getting healthy for the playoffs. There are a couple new names on this list. All of them pretty minor, though. J.J. Murray of the Giants, George Boone of the Vikings, and Reginald Campbell of the Rams will miss next week. But in the case of some of these teams, like the Rams, will be back for the playoffs. Only big name still on this list is Ellswick, who, again, is out for the season with that leg muscle tear. And then on the list of players getting off the injured reserve, Atlanta center Todd Brumlow has recovered, and he will be eligible to play in the finale Week 18. So, we get into the playoff standings, again, with just a week to go. Here is where we stand. We now have 3 distinct sections in the playoff race. 1 and 2 are Miami and Denver. So it is Miami's to lose that top seed and home field advantage. Similarly, 3 and 4 are Cleveland and Indianapolis, who have clinched both their divisions. It's Cleveland's if they win, but if they falter, Indianapolis can jump ahead. The tiebreaker there is common opponents for the Browns. Both those teams are in, but they could flop seeding depending on what happens in the final week. And then it is a 5-way tie for 3 playoff spots. Now, I have run the scenarios. Buffalo and Houston are eliminated at 7 and 9, even if they catch up and it's a huge 8 and 9 pile up. They don't have the tiebreakers. So it is down to these 5 teams. Pittsburgh right now has the edge thanks to conference record. They also have head-to-head over most of these teams except the Titans. So Pittsburgh is winning in. The Chargers have the head-to-head over Jacksonville. They're winning in. Jacksonville has head-to-head 2 games to none over the Titans. They are winning in. Titans have the conference record over Vegas, so they are 8 versus the Raiders at 9. But all of these teams are still very much alive for the last 3 spots. Nothing is guaranteed, so it's all going to come down to the final week. So, again, Miami is going to be number 1 as long as they win. If they lose and Denver wins, Denver could leapfrog them. Same story with Cleveland and Indianapolis. Cleveland is 3 unless they lose, and Indianapolis jumps ahead. Pittsburgh is in with a win. They are number 5 for sure. They could sneak into the playoffs even if they lose. If Jacksonville or Tennessee loses, if both of those teams lose, Pittsburgh would still be the number 6 seed. If one of them loses, Pittsburgh sneaks in at number 7. If Pittsburgh loses and both those teams wins, Pittsburgh's out. Chargers are also in with a win. If they win and Pittsburgh loses, they're number 5. If both Pittsburgh and the Chargers win, Chargers stay at 6. They could sneak into the playoffs at number 7 if Jacksonville and Tennessee both lose. They're further behind. They would need both of those results. So Chargers in a slightly better position, but still best case scenario for them, win and you're in. Jacksonville is win and in. They could be anywhere from 5-7, depending on what other teams do. But if Jacksonville wins, they do get into the playoffs somewhere. Their only other hope otherwise would be a Vegas and Tennessee to lose. Basically, the two teams behind them lose, and Jaguars would coast in their existing number 7 spot. Tennessee, it's win and hope one of the three teams above you loses. It can be any of the three because they're all tied at 8-8. And then Vegas, because Vegas is playing the Chargers, winning eliminates one of those teams, the Chargers, and then similarly, they just need one of the other three teams ahead of them to lose, any of Pittsburgh, Jacksonville, or Tennessee. So Vegas is going to get one of those contenders out themselves if they win, and they need just a little bit of help to get the rest of the way there. So yeah, 4 games playing 4 games containing those 5 teams. So absolutely anything could happen. A lot of those games are simultaneous, so we'll be watching very closely on Sunday to see what happens. In the NFC, things are starting to take shape. 6 of the 7 teams have been decided. Washington has secured number 1, so they can do what they want with this Week 18 game. It won't affect the standings, and then they will get a bye after that, and the number 1 seed. Currently, Carolina is number 2. Followed by the Rams and Green Bay. So right now it's Carolina ahead of the Rams based on head-to-head. If there's a 3-way tie, it does get murky because Green Bay has a head-to-head over somebody. So it can get very interesting. There's still some movement to be had in those top 3, or in 2 through 4. And then Atlanta's still very much alive. They're definitely in, but they could win their way into the division title if they beat Carolina. But Atlanta is in. Dallas is also in at 10 wins. They have 2 wins over Philly and a win over Seattle and a win over Detroit. So Dallas has cleared their path to at least getting into the playoffs, 6 or 7. Philadelphia is winning their in territory, definitely leading the pack. Seattle could sneak in still. Detroit is out. They lose to Philadelphia on common opponents, and if it comes down to a 3-way tie, they lose to Seattle on conference record. But the Lions can still affect the outcome. You see, if the Eagles lose and the Seahawks win, they're tied at 10-7. Now, normally that would go to Philadelphia because Philadelphia literally just beat Seattle this week. But if Detroit also wins and makes it a 3-way tie, well, the Eagles and Lions didn't play, so head-to-head doesn't apply. So it goes to conference record where Seattle is better. So Seattle doesn't just need to win and have the Eagles lose. Seattle needs Detroit to win as well to force a 3-way tie. So Seattle is still alive, but just barely. The Lions cannot make themselves... The Lions cannot get in themselves, but they could determine the outcome if the other 2 games go a certain way. So again, just to spell it out, Carolina is number 2 if they win, and if they lose to Atlanta, Atlanta is the South champion, which means Carolina is the top wild card, number 5. If that happens, if Carolina loses, the Rams can win and bump themselves up to 2. The Rams are more than likely 3 if they win, or if Green Bay loses, or if Carolina beats Atlanta. Any of those scenarios, the Rams will be at 3. Green Bay is currently at 4. If they win and Carolina loses, they could jump up to 3. In the rare event that the Rams also lose to the 49ers, Green Bay could technically jump all the way up to number 2. Again, the way the tiebreakers work, if Green Bay wins and only the Rams lose, they're still number 4 because they don't get past the other teams. It's a whole thing. More than likely, it's Carolina at either 2 or 5, and then the Rams sliding behind them and Green Bay behind them. Some upsets could change that. In particular, for the Falcons, if they win, they're division champions. So they're at least number 4. If either of the Rams or Packers lose, for each loss, the Falcons will jump up 1 spot. So if everybody wins, Falcons are 4. If Packers also lose, Falcons could jump up to 3. If the Rams lose, Falcons could jump all the way to 2. And if the Falcons lose, they're the top wild card. They're number 5. Dallas, as we said, is in. They're number 6 as long as they win. But if they fall, Philly could surpass them. Eagles, any scenario, if they win, they're in. If Seattle loses, then they're in. And again, if Detroit loses, that means the only tiebreaker is head-to-head, which the Eagles have. So any of those outcomes, Eagles are in. Seattle needs everything to go the opposite way. Seattle needs to win. They need Detroit to win, and then the Eagles to lose to force a 3-way tie. And in that event, Seattle would sneak in at number 7 on conference record tiebreaker. But we shall see. That brings us to the current draft order, which, once again, this segment is sponsored by the SimNFL Draft Guide, which you can pre-order now. Contact Alex Fall for more details. This is a printed booklet with stats and summaries. It's got mock drafts and all kinds of information. It's hundreds of pages of real data on the recruits coming out for the next draft. It's a fantastic product. I have one myself. It lives on my shelf. It is both a great keepsake and both a great tool for draft day. Contact Alex Fall now if you would like to pre-order a copy of the SimNFL Draft Guide for 2026. And currently, that draft order looks to be, again, San Francisco on top. Unless they somehow miraculously beat the Rams, they will have the number 1 pick. Detroit still at number 2 with the Saints first rounder, and then Minnesota at 3. Giants and Jets and Tampa Bay all moving up after New England and the Bears win. Followed by a static group of Arizona, Cincinnati, and then Baltimore and Kansas City are still tied, or rather are tied now based on strength of schedule. So that may be decided in the last week depending on who they play, but if not, it would be decided by coin flip. So that is where we stand currently. So, as we know, Monday we had our first news of extensions being offered. Details are still coming in. Big news, we know that quarterbacks Dakota Link and Robert Morris have signed big extensions for their team. Link is a 74 overall, and the team jumped straight into a long contract. He's got a value of 29, and reports out of Carolina say that is about $12 million a year, which is a great deal, but also about what Dean Hammonds got last year for an extension. Hammonds was fully guaranteed, 4 years, $48 million. We'll see the exact details on Link, how much of it's guaranteed and for how long. But I think that's a great investment for the future for the Panthers. Robert Morris, being older, more experienced, higher overall, his value was 36. So that could be a huge contract. I think Pittsburgh GM has said that it was a 3-year deal for him. But it's very similar to about what he is making now. So I think it's a solid investment for Pittsburgh. And at 3 years gives it time to get to what is the typical quarterback peak. I believe 32 is the average prime age for a quarterback. So we don't know where Morris falls in that, but he will now be 33 at the end of this latest deal. Wayne Reimer as well for Tennessee has signed an extension, the 28-year-old with a value of 13, staying on the team for the immediate future. And then we have some big defensive names. Denver linebacker Gordon Wilburn, 30-year-old, signing a 29 value deal. Arthur Madrano, one of the premier young cornerbacks in the league, getting an even bigger deal to stay with the Saints. Emory Hightower, outside linebacker for the Eagles, signing an extension for them. And then Tommy Merriman, who was, I believe, a second-round pick in that initial draft class. 69 overall, but a lot of upside, and the Titans are giving him a big contract to stick around long-term. Some other big names that are still going through negotiations. Dallas is still working with Amar Rodriguez and Michael Dyson on big names for them. Rodriguez, I think, is one of the biggest names from that 22 rookie class. A 76 overall, A-plus potential at 25 years old. Dallas, again, skipping the fifth-year option, going right to an extension. They're going to have to go up from 27 to get him back to the table. So it could be big bucks there. Michael Dyson, another defensive end from that initial class. There was a much hyped defensive end class, and then they all fell to the second round, but started to get their dues now. Meanwhile, Vegas negotiating with Andrew Richards and Nicholas Sarno. The word from the Vegas camp was that Sarno's deal was over $30 million in total, and that Richards was approaching 40, which makes sense when you look at their values for 24 and 18, what their total dollars could be. So both of those players are going to get a big payday. We'll wait to hear more as of next week. And then John Peters of the Jets, still negotiating with them, and Devontae McKinney, another first-round pick from that initial draft where the team went straight to extensions. And that even with the 14 being denied, I think skipping the option was a good call for the Steelers. I think McKinney's option was something like $8 million a year. So with a value of 14, I think they're going to get significantly under that, even if they have to up their next offer a little bit. So a lot of big names still to be discussed. A lot of big names yet to be offered. Aguilera is another one for the Chargers that I know we're watching very carefully. Gonna see when that first offer drops and what he might sign for. But yeah, we'll keep a close eye on things. This was the first sync of 6. We're going from now until the Super Bowl is extension season, so we'll keep a close eye on these players. And as we get closer to the end, we'll also have a much fuller view of what the potential free agent pool is like for players that are definitely not getting extensions from their teams. And we can talk about that in the weeks to come. So with all of that said, and it was a lot, here is our preview for Week 18. Now, before I mention the games, I do have to say there will not be a SimNFL show next week. I will be on vacation. So I will be watching the outcomes intently, but I will not be able to report on that one. I will be back. However, for the playoffs, we have more to talk about, both game summaries and extensions, and more new segments as well as we build anticipation for the playoffs in the coming season. So I will be back for the playoffs, but I will be off for next week. But we finish the regular season next week, and as I mentioned before, all the games are on Sundays for maximum drama. We start at noon with the de facto NFC South championship game between Carolina. It is at Atlanta, so we'll see if the Falcons can add to their record-setting season so far. Also at noon, we have Baltimore at Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh in the driver's seat for the playoffs, but this could be the first domino to fall for some other teams looking to move up if Baltimore can give them a hand. And then we finish at noon with Philadelphia at Washington. Washington, we will see what kind of depth chart they put out, sitting pretty at 15-1 with the number one overall seed in the conference locked up. In the afternoon, we have Tennessee at Indianapolis. Indianapolis having wrapped up the AFC South, but still playing for seeding. And Tennessee absolutely playing for their playoff lives, hoping someone around them can do them a favor, and then they can beat the Colts and sneak their way in. Jacksonville at Houston, another team with a lot to play for. Matt Howard could be playing for his career, honestly, from what I hear out of the Jacksonville front office. So a lot to watch there. And then the Chargers at Las Vegas. Very good odds that one of these two teams will be in the playoffs. So do or die for both of them as we get into the afternoon. Then we will wrap things up with the Battle of Ohio, Cleveland at Cincinnati. This one's mostly for bragging rights, though the Browns, depending on what happens with the Colts, might still be playing for the number 3 seed. They might have it locked up. But we will finish the regular season with Cleveland at Cincinnati on Sunday night. And that is everything I have for this edition of the SimNFL show. Thank you so much this week and every week for stopping by and listening to me ramble about our wonderful fake sports site. I do love it so much, and I appreciate all your investment and time and energy. So I will miss you next week, but excited to be back for the playoffs. And in the meantime, I will leave you with what I say to all owners in all of our sims. Good luck and have fun.